So yes, the vegetables that you had in your burrito were used to simulate sex acts behind the counter. That's disgusting. Hello and welcome back to the Marcus Williams Training Academy podcast, where we talk about all things misconduct. Today is another episode in Misconduct in the News. We are going to be talking about Chipotle. Yes, the place where you go to get those giant burritos. Misconduct happened there, and they actually had to settle because of the way that they handled the allegations. So before we jump into the story, please subscribe, hit the notification button, share with your friends. If you enjoy the content of this podcast, that is the best way that you can help me out, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you would like to tell your story, maybe you were the victim of misconduct, or you were accused, or you had to investigate, or you were the manager, or just a witness. Maybe your company did everything right. Maybe you felt like you were supported and they did everything they could to help you through the process. We want to hear those good stories as well. We can learn from those as well. We can emulate the good and also learn from the bad. So go to my website at williamsconsultgroup.com/podcast. You can find the link in the description as well, and let me know that you would like to be on the show. All right, let's get started talking about Chipotle. So Chipotle is a chain of restaurants that is across the United States. If you're not familiar with them, like I said, massive burritos and other Mexican food. So there was an employee, a male employee at Chipotle. His name is Austin Melton. He's 22 years old, began working at Chipotle out of high school, and he alleged that his manager, the general manager in San Jose, California, was engaging in sexual harassment. He said, and this is according to an article in Market Watch from December of 2019, that the manager slapped, groped, and grabbed his buttocks and groin area numerous times. Sexual assault. So this is not just harassment, this is sexual assault. But that wasn't all. That's not everything that this manager did. So the unnamed manager, okay, and let's side note here a little bit. Why is it that the victim is named in the suit? Everyone knows who the victim of this misconduct is, but we protect the privacy of the perpetrator? That seems backwards. Now, I know he ended up filing suit, so his name was in the suit, became public, but it doesn't seem right that a victim has to put their name out there when the perpetrator can remain anonymous. Anyway, so this unnamed manager also propositioned Melton and his girlfriend and used vegetables to simulate sex acts. So yes, the vegetables that you had in your burrito were used to simulate sex acts behind the counter. That's disgusting. She also sent him and other employees Instagram direct messages of herself clad in her underwear. But nope, that's not all. She kept a sex scoreboard in her office. She tallied which workers had sex the previous night. And then when they said no, they hadn't, she ridiculed them. None of her business about the sex life of her employees, and especially not making fun of them, putting up on a scoreboard. All of these acts are obviously inappropriate and misconduct on their face. So Chipotle's responsibility when these allegations came in was to investigate, to find out whether or not the evidence supports that these allegations happened, and then to take action. But unfortunately, Chipotle did not act. They did nothing. Now, he reported it up the chain of command like he was supposed to do. And a lot of employees feel like they can't do that, but he decided he was going to do the right thing and report her, and yet he did not get the response he should have gotten. Not only that, he was retaliated against. Coworkers once allegedly locked him in a walk-in freezer, and he escaped through an emergency exit because he had come forward. Another time, they allegedly moved his motorcycle and laughed at him. The general manager, the perpetrator, the one sexually harassing him, screamed at him during a meeting on his complaints. And another time, she hit him on the head with a pan. Physical assault, a crime. He finally left the job. He quit. He couldn't put up with it anymore. And that's when the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission got involved. So the EEOC put out a press release in December of 2019 that Chipotle was to pay $95,000 to Melton for what happened, to settle the suit. So they also agreed to make substantial changes to settle sexual harassment and retaliation to how they handle it, basically, in the future, that they would provide training and they would come up with a better process to handle allegations when they came in. Because he did, remember, he made the allegation. He actually reported this activity. This isn't something that he quit and just kept silent about. He actually reported it. In this article, it said she also propositioned him and his then girlfriend for sex. So not just him, she involved his girlfriend. So that's even more, if as if that wasn't enough. So Melton is quoted as saying, "This was my first job after high school, and it was hard to speak up about the harassment to management and then to the EEOC. But it was the right thing to do," said Melton. "I hope this settlement will help to make the restaurants a better and safer workplace for everyone. I am thankful to the EEOC for standing up for me and seeing this through." That's a great statement. Absolutely right. He hopes that this will make it a better place for everyone else, but he acknowledged how difficult it was for him personally, and frankly, he should not have had to go through that. The initial behavior, number one, and then the lack of response when he went to her managers for help. He asked for help and didn't receive any help. So the EEOC trial attorney, James Baker, said, "Austin was simply trying to do his job as he worked to support himself and his girlfriend. And isn't that what we are all just trying to do? We're all trying to do our job, support ourselves, and earn a living. And we should be able to do that without being harassed and assaulted." The Baker also added that roughly 16% of sexual harassment charges filed with the EEOC are brought by male workers. Now, we typically think of it, when we think of sexual harassment in the workplace, our minds automatically go to male supervisor harassing female subordinate, because that is the majority of cases. But 16% is not a small number where the roles are reversed and the male employee is the one bringing the reports. And it could be a male supervisor as well. So male on male, male on female. Basically, the point is that it doesn't matter your gender. All genders can be the perpetrators and all genders can be the victims of this misconduct. And so we can't make a judgment, we can't make a decision that an allegation is either true or not based on the gender of the complainant, because it doesn't matter. It happens to everyone. And we need to keep that in mind. We need to remember not to make a quick rush to judgment based on the gender of the person who is coming to us for help. All right, so HR Dive talked about this case in their article, December 6, 2019, and they kind of broke down a little bit of what they thought about the situation and what happened. So as part of the settlement, Chipotle did not admit to any wrongdoing. That is fairly common in a lawsuit. We will pay the settlement, we'll give you money, but we're not going to admit that we did anything wrong. That's part of the settlement. A lot of these settlements, I'm actually surprised that the amount was made public, because a lot of the settlements, part of the settlement is that the amount remains private and undisclosed, and both parties just walk away. Chipotle obviously is trying to keep their reputation. So, and they don't want to admit that they did anything wrong, because that could bring other suits and other issues. There were other employees that probably faced the same type of harassment. So that's unfortunate. I understand it. I understand that it's a business decision and a legal one, and any company is going to try to do the same thing. They want to settle without admitting any guilt. But it's always disappointing to me to hear that you have an employee that was treated so poorly by one of your managers, and you're not even willing to say, I'm sorry, because if you apologize, you're admitting you did something wrong. So the money is nice, but I don't know. It's the part of the settlement was also that, like I said, they would institute changes in their process and how they handled complaints and how they trained their managers. But it's hard to believe that companies really want to change if they're not willing to admit they did something wrong in the first place. What are you changing if you didn't do anything wrong? So it's a little contradictory. We're agreeing to make changes, yet we didn't do anything wrong. So why do we need to make changes? So you're kind of admitting that you did something wrong by the fact that you're agreeing to make changes, even though legally you're not admitting it. Again, that's common. It's just unfortunate that that's the way it often happens. So HR Dive provided kind of their insight of what had happened, and they recommended training. And of course, that's always our answer, right? In fact, that's what I do at the Marcus Williams Training Academy, is I provide training. But training, I mean, is there anyone out there who could honestly say, oh, I thought that what I was doing is okay? Is there any manager of a business who said groping your employees is a justifiable or an okay thing to do? I mean, what kind of training? Do they need training to know that that's not okay? No, she knew it and she did it anyway. So she made the decision to grope him and to ridicule him and proposition him, knowing full well that that was not appropriate, that that was not okay. So is further training really going to help? What is going to help is the company actually taking action. The company has to show that we're not just training you because we have to. We're training you because these are our values and we believe in it, and we will take action if you do something against it. That's where the problem lies, is the lack of action, the lack of holding this manager accountable and basically forcing the poor employee to have to sue them for redress because they were unwilling to help him out otherwise. HR Dive said that HR can also create a reporting procedure for harassment and discrimination that starts with taking all complaints seriously, regardless of whether the alleged harassment is at the hands of a supervisor or coworker. Okay, and make sure that complaints are promptly investigated. And I actually highlighted that in the article because that is the key. There was a reporting procedure here. I don't know if it was a formal one. It doesn't say, but he was able to report it. So he either just found out who the next level manager was and reported it, or there was a procedure. I don't know. But he was able to communicate that grievance, that complaint, allegation. It was that last part, the investigation, never happened. None of the training matters. None of this process matters. You can set up a website with anonymous complaints, or you can set up a phone tree. You can set up all sorts of procedures to help employees more easily file these complaints. But if you don't investigate them, if you don't take action on them, none of that matters. When he made the original complaint, they should have instituted an immediate investigation that involved interviewing all of the employees of that chain, everyone who had ever worked with that manager, looking at the sex scoreboard in the office, taking pictures of it, taking statements, getting copies of the Instagram messages if they hadn't been deleted. All of those things should have been done immediately, compiled together in the investigative report, and then HR should have made a decision based on the evidence gathered. Now, they didn't assume any guilt, but because they paid, we're going to assume that the allegations were true. And if so, she should have been disciplined. She should have been fired quickly based on the investigation. Unfortunately, that investigation never actually happened. So Chipotle is not alone in having this problem. The Dive Insight article talked about Payway Asian Diner in Arkansas, who was recently sued by the EEOC for allegedly ignoring complaints that 2 managers were sexually harassing employees. That's just one example. There are many examples out there. Companies create or advertise their values, they create policies, they create processes, but if they don't follow up, none of that matters. It's all for naught. And when you don't act by not investigating his complaints, Chipotle was communicating to him and all of his other fellow employees that they don't actually take it seriously, that they don't actually believe in the values they profess to believe in. Because I'm just going to go out on a limb and guess that Chipotle would argue that sexual harassment in the workplace is not acceptable in their company. Well, if it wasn't acceptable in your company, you should have taken action. And it doesn't matter that the employee was male and the accused was female, because again, it can happen by all genders against all genders. So that was the failure here. And now I would be interested to know, when he made the initial complaint, did it ever actually reach Chipotle HR? Did it just stop at that manager? Was there a conversation? What action was taken? Or was it just received and then dropped in the garbage or deleted? That's not in the articles. Clearly, we know they didn't take action or investigate, but what did they actually do? And unfortunately, we don't know that. We don't know how that was handled. Was that a conversation where the manager who received the complaint called HR and said, "What do I do?" And they said nothing? Or did he never even take it to HR? I would venture to guess they probably never took it to HR. And that could be he or she. I don't know. It doesn't say who that next level manager was who received that allegation. Yes, the complainant in this case got a payout. Got $95,000. That's great. But he deserved it. That was lost pay. It was everything he had to go through. It was the process of having to go through the trial. His name is public. All of that could have been avoided if they had responded appropriately to the initial complaint. All right, so that is our story about Chipotle. Again, it was a couple years ago, but it still happens today. We still see companies failing to act today. And I don't know of any company who says that that behavior is okay or appropriate. But yet it continues to happen and go uninvestigated and undisciplined. If you believe it is wrong, you have to take action when you hear of it happening. That builds trust, and I say that word a lot. I talk about trust a lot because it's so important. Employees need to trust their employer. If you say something, people only trust in it when they see you taking action to support it. That's our episode today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave any comments in the comments below. Get in touch with me if you would like to discuss further. And again, if you'd like to be on my podcast, go to williamsconsultgroup.com/podcast. Fill out the little form. It only takes a minute. And I would love to share your story because your story could help someone else. Thank you. And we will see you next time on the Marcus Williams Training Academy podcast.